Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and together with my colleague Georgina Humphreys, we are going to present you the TREIO project and some of our most recent tools that are designed specifically for the purposes of those professionals that worked in the EIO domain. However, we are also to present you a little bit about the ongoing digitalization initiatives in the judicial cooperation field, how they relate to TREIO, what is the TREIO about in that context, and how we can further help you beyond these tools. So this is the agenda for today. As announced, the meeting is recorded and you will receive both the recording and the presentation from today after the end of the webinar series, so around the end of the week. In case you have questions regarding to what we are describing and discussing in today's webinar, you can raise your hand and initiate your comment, or you can just put it in the chat. If you don't have the availability to speak, or you're not interested to do so, and then either me or Georgina will read your comment for the audience and reply to that. So let's start with the first topic regarding ongoing digitalization initiatives. As you might be aware, there are a number of such digitalization initiatives taking place on European level in the recent years. And some of them are very closely linked to the electronic exchange of information and cross-border transactions and exchange of evidence, and more particular to what's going on in the EIO domain. So in practice, everything started back in 2010, when following an initiative from some member states, there was a project starting with the purpose to develop a secure channel for communication and data exchange. Once this initial project finished in 2016, the result of it is now known as the eCodex system. And the system itself, the architecture that team built, was so successful that it led to a number of spin-off projects working on different use cases on how to use the eCodex system for different judicial cooperation tools. But it was also recognized by the European Commission as a potential further further development purposes on EU level. After several years of negotiations, the regulation on eCodex was adopted in 2022, and that regulation defines the different roles, responsibilities, and the overall legal framework for operating the eCodex system. And the latter is, at the moment, the European system for secure communication of data and documents between judicial authorities, especially in the context of judicial cooperation matters. Following these developments, long before the adoption of the regulation, as I said, the Commission recognized the value of the eCodex system and decided to initiate another system, the so-called eEDES digital exchange system, or reference implementation software. When you hear one or the other, they lead to one and the same system in the end. So they decided to initiate this system as a common tool for all member states to support the exchange of documents and information under a number of judicial cooperation instruments. And they first piloted this system for the purposes of the European investigation orders, the mutual legal assistance forms, and interception of telecommunication notifications. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 crisis, the launch of the system was delayed several times, both on behalf of the Commission and the member states interested to pilot it. So it was first launched with 5 member states joining the platform in May 2022. And to date, there are 11 member states that have successfully joined the platform in this piloting mode. And you can see them on the screen. Now, when I say piloting mode, this means that not all competent authorities on national level use the system, but there are at least a number of competent authorities where the eEDES system is deployed, and they are already exchanging EIOs between themselves. There are also at least 5 or 6 member states that are at the very final stages of deploying eEDES on national level, and this will follow in the next month. And then the other member states are still considering the different strategies on how to proceed with this deployment, and are expected to join this circle of member states in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, there are different options on how to deploy the system, depending on the strategy of the member state. It could be a standalone solution, meaning it is separate from all other systems. It could be integrated into the national case management system, or there could be some kind of a hybrid solution for purposes of the EIO exchanges. Now, this is the technical side of these European initiatives, and as usually there is a legal side to it. So going further, what's important to be noted for the purposes of this webinar is actually the very recent adoption of the regulation on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal matters. This is a brand new regulation. It was adopted in December 2023. It's already in force, but will apply from 1st of May 2025. This very same regulation amends 8 other legislative acts in the field of judicial cooperation for purposes of digitalization. Now, while the focus of this regulation is on establishing new rules for certain communication activities in digital format, there are also other matters that I will comment on just in a minute that are directly reflecting your work on the EIO exchanges. So the new rules that this regulation covers refer to the use of video conferencing or other distance communication technologies in oral hearings, the electronic communication between natural or legal persons or their representatives and competent authorities, the recognition of documents and electronic signatures or seals, as well as the payment of fees through electronic means in the context of the judicial cooperation instrument the regulation referred to. As I said, on top of these new rules, the regulation actually says that the use of the codex system, so the use of a secure communication channel for electronic exchange of documents and data and all the communications in this regard, should become mandatory for a total of 24 legislative instruments in the judicial cross-border cooperation domain. At the same time, the use of the reference implementation software or the eEDES system that I mentioned just before could be adopted by the member states for the purposes of this exchange, unless they opt out for a dedicated national solution. So the use of eEDES is voluntary, but considering the experience with the system so far, at least 2/3 of the member states are planning to use it. Of course, this may change over time, but for now, this is the overall situation. Now, when I say over time, this is also linked to the fact that we are talking about 24 legislative instruments, which is quite a lot to digitalize in a single go. So this is why the Commission has established a roadmap on the adoption of these digitalization matters per instrument. And you can see how this gradual step-by-step approach has been designed for the next, basically, 7 years plus. The mandatory use of eCodex, but not eEDES, just don't forget this. We're talking about the communication channel, but the system that works with that communication channel may be different. So the mandatory use of eCodex will be initiated in 2025 with the service of documents and taking of evidence for civil and commercial purposes. And then will gradually be implemented for all the other instruments that you see on the screen. The digital exchange of electronic evidence and all the electronic European investigation orders and all the evidences and communication in that regard, as you see here on the screen where I'm pointing at, will become mandatory from 2028. And in line with this roadmap, the Commission is further developing the eEDES system for all these judicial cooperation instruments to make sure that each of the member states is ready to go when the time comes, even if they don't have a national solution in place. So this is a bit of a technical slide, but I just wanted to make sure that we are all on the same page, how this communication goes. So let's imagine your Greek competent authority that you present is here on this very right-hand side of the screen. So your competent authority is using the reference implementation software for the purposes of EIO Exchanges. This reference implementation software is linked to the eCodex communication point that transfer messages through the eCodex communication channels. The information and documents go to the other side in a different member state, let's say Bulgaria, because it's easy as an example. And then you have there another communication point on eCodex. The Bulgarians are also using the eEDES system instance. And there is also a Bulgarian competent authorities on the other side receiving all these messages. Every member state and every competent authority that has adopted the use of eEDES will see and use exactly the same system. So this is how the system look and feel for those who have already participated in some of our activities or in some of the activities provided by the Commission. You may be familiar with it, but for all the others, we have a very brief presentation at the very end of the webinar today, and we'll provide you with access to a simulation of this system so you can understand how it works. You can explore how it works without the need of a particular national solution, of an implemented national strategy, or any further decision taken on national level. So what is important here is that the framework of the system and all the main functionalities on electronic signing of documents, on user interface, on auto translation options, and this is something that I'm going to comment further later on, they will all remain the same. What will change with the addition of the new judicial cooperation instruments that are to be digitalized is that every time when you initiate a request under particular judicial cooperation instruments, the forms, the operational requirements will change following the respective legislative act. but the main functionality and the main interface will remain the same, and the user experience will remain the same. So if you now learn how to use this system for EIO purposes, every time when a new instrument is introduced, it will be easier for you to get along with the changes. I'm not going to deal with this any further. I think you are already getting the bigger picture here. So I'm now going to focus on TREIO and the TREIO tools that we are to present today. So our project was conceived back in 2019, 2020, when we saw that all these developments are initiated. They are to happen sometime in the near future. So we were interested to find a way to deliver tools for professionals in two main directions. So one of the issues was how to support the alignment of practices under the EIO directive between the member states. And the other aspect that we considered at the time was what is the best approach to train people in using this new system when it's ready. So what we had done at the time is to start with designing a person-to-person training framework and materials that relate to both these aspects. So the materials that we have created were originally designed for the purposes of person-to-person type of training, and they cover on legal, business aspects, and guidelines on how to use the eEDES system in a stage-by-stage approach. So the materials are going through all the possible stages of the EIO exchange and comment on the different aspects from legal, business, and operational side and the use of the system for that particular moment. They also allow for national adaptations. I already mentioned this just before we started. One of our participants would take part in today's webinar. We conducted trainings under the TREIO umbrella for Greece together with national trainers in last spring. And it was a very good example how the national trainers took the materials and adjusted them to the needs of the Greek professionals. There were case law discussed. They put emphasis on certain differences in competencies and the EIO workflow. So in reality, the original materials came from TREIO, but they were slightly adjusted in different directions to further enhance the training for the purposes of the audience. All these materials are translated in 16 different languages on top of the original English version, and the Greek language is among those 16. Following the development of these training materials, we have started doing a lot of train-the-trainer activities, a lot of online training, including the one that I just mentioned for Greece. In reality, I think there were actually 2 trainings, sorry, and for Greek audiences. And we also did a number of awareness events, just like this one, on the different tools and different methodologies that we have explored in the project and how they could be adapted to the national needs. One important lesson learned is that because of the different pace of the member states, because of the different strategies they adopted towards the deployment of the eEDES system and the adoption of eCodex in the first place, all these trainings that we were doing were not sufficient. And in many cases, they were not very productive. Because we do the training now, but then if the member states adopt the system a year later or 2 years later, then all the information that we have given in the training is completely forgotten, and the participants need a refreshing one. And this is why we have developed the TREIO eLearning course that we are going to present today. And together with it, we also worked on the so-called TREIO eEDES Simulate. This is a special software that is built on top of the original eEDES system. So it is an exact replica of the system provided by the Commission, but we integrated several functionalities linked to training. And I will explain further on how this happened, what's the purpose of it, and how you can access the simulator and work with it. Of course, this presentation will be rather brief because this is not an EIO training, but it's a presentation of the tools. But yet I think you will get, again, the big picture, and you'll be able to proceed with exploring these tools yourself. Nowadays, we are at the final stages of our project. And we are working on the TREIO Toolkit. It's a special instrument, or basically a set of instruments, where we are dividing all these materials that we have produced depending on the audience that is going to be used to use them. And we are also preparing special guidelines. So when I'm saying adapting the tools to different audience, this means three main things. So for professionals like you, people who are directly involved in the EIO exchanges, the e-learning course, some of the written materials, or the eEDES simulator that we have prepared are the things that you will be looking for if you want to learn more about how to use the system, or if you don't have sufficient experience with EIO exchanges and you want to learn more on EIOs per se. But the trainers that are giving trainings on these topics, or the competent authorities that are further to adopt the eEDES system or a similar national solution, may have other needs. And we have tried to address those needs in different ways. And Georgina, who is to speak next on the learning course, she'll also touch upon these different set of tools that we have prepared depending on the audience. Now I'll give the word to Georgina to proceed with the e-learning course.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, so I will cover some of the aspects around the e-learning course, as Alex has mentioned, and touch upon the TREIO eEDES simulator as well. So let's have a brief look. So we had several aims and activities within the TREIO project, and we have three key components specifically related to the TREIO online training. We have an e-learning platform which has been set up to house the training. We have the self-paced training content itself in a package, and we have select language versions also. And then to complement, we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which is used for a training environment where you can perform real-time training experience and testing with some of the content that we've developed. All in all, these make up the TREIO online training and a tool that practitioners can use to raise their awareness of the EIO and eEDES. We have several use cases for the TREIO training. And there are, in actual fact, two packages to consider here. There is a full package and an eEDES package. The eEDES package is a shorter version focusing solely on the use of eEDES in the EIO workflow. And the full package is information about the EIO directive, EIO form, and as well as that, the eEDES and how it can be used within the process and EIO workflow. We've also considered that there is a need for refresher training. So, for example, if practitioners have been instructed or self-evaluate that they would like to refresh their memory on specific content, then they can do so by following through the full package and selecting specific topics to do so. There are several benefits we feel of the TREIO online training, and the most obvious is an increased awareness of the EIO directive, EIO form, and eEDES, including its use and benefits for transferring digital evidences, but also that the training is user-centered and it has an active learning approach with no instructor required, which means for the professionals, it's a self-paced study and control their own study time, which is allows for greater flexibility and accessibility by professionals who we are aware don't have a lot of time to take out to go on a 1 week training course, for example. So doing a few hours of a day here and there might be more beneficial at a self-paced in a self-paced environment, sorry. And also to increase the professional's confidence in using eEDES as a platform using the TREIO eEDES simulator. We have several aims and objectives, and these consider having a structured knowledge of the EIO directive and EIO procedures, being able to identify investigative measures, but also the typical difficulties within that and how to overcome them in the application of the EIO, and the various procedures for transmission and receipt of an EIO, and then how to use eEDES in the process of doing so using our simulator. So at the end of the training, we hope that everyone who's participated will have a well-rounded approach of all things EIO, so whether it be legal, business related, or in the context of the workflow and the use of eEDES. The e-learning content is, as I have mentioned, online. It is self-paced. We have the two packages. The full package is around 1 week, and the eEDES package, so the shorter one, is around 2 to 3 days. That said, it might not take you a full week or 2 to 3 days, but that's allocated to allow for time for breaks, time to practice, time for self-reflection and other aspects within the training. But can obviously be split up into the time periods that you may have available. The master copy is in English, but there are select language versions, and we target multiple stakeholders. So whether you're a judge, a prosecutor, a clerk, or administrator, or anything in between handling EIO and eEDES, then the TREIO training includes everything that you could think that you might need, hopefully. The training overview here is of both modules containing both packages containing 5 modules. The eEDES package contains just fewer lessons in the package itself, but they both have a structure similar to the one on your screen at the moment. We have several take-home tasks, which are effectively exercises to perform. We have only listed 3 here, but there are actually more in the process of those items. And we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which is the thread throughout all modules and all exercises. We have various content within the course, and it accumulates in a collection of theory and practice. We have various aspects related to the legal requirements, procedures, and case law, which you can guess is quite heavily text-based, but we have added visual aids to assist. We have also included some short videos, some demonstrations, exercises, and areas for self-reflection, including quizzes and the end examination, and simulations which have been designed with the TREIO eEDES simulator in mind. And we'll just run through a few ideas of the content that appears in the course. So you have text-based content, we have graphics, and some of the graphics are in animation form, i.e. clickable elements, or video format. We have short videos, all which include subtitling. Some short videos do have sound, but most videos we have removed sound for the fact that you might be training in your work environment. So obviously having sound might not be possible. So every video includes subtitles. And we have some quizzes, as I mentioned, and the exam appears in a similar format to the quizzes for consistency and awareness on behalf of the professional. We have these demonstrations, which are usually split into chunks. The videos have subtitles. They can be paused, slowed, and played for your convenience, and we ask professionals to and recommend professionals to follow along with the TREIO eEDES simulator. This is just a brief demo, and we won't play it all, but we'll give you a sneak peek. So we have some subtitling here. You can see it's English, but in the select languages, then it also appears in those languages. We have the ability to pause, fast forward, slow down, etc. And we have various chunks in these demonstrations. Each chunk is a specific area or item that we feel is of relevance to you or importance. And some of these chunks might even have more additional information, as you see on the right-hand side, this little document with a plus symbol, which allows us to provide you with more information about specific items. So in this case, it's searching for a competent authority, but it might be about translations or other aspects where we think you need to know specific information or be targeted towards a specific link or something else. We also have simulations, and these are different from the TREIO eEDES simulator. These are embedded in the content itself. They are clickable elements which allow you to walk through a particular task. So we will show you briefly a simulation here. And this is us starting a new request for an ITN. You're given a set of instructions, and to follow the instruction, you click on each of the elements you're directed to. In this case, obviously ITN, we have filled in some text for you because we cannot input text in this simulation, but you can within the TREIO eEDES simulator. But as you can see, this simulation, you are just walking through the tasks that you might perform to start an ITN request. We also have some practical exercises, which I mentioned. We have a minimum set of them, but we have quite a lot. We have 10 exercises available, each with a scenario and a task. We have two forms of these exercises. We have one, which is the scenario and task with a guided set of instructions. So we say to you, please do A, B, C, D, E. And then we have a second example, which just provides you with a scenario, and it's a different scenario to the first one with a task, and you're expected to recall the information we've just provided to you in the step-by-step instructions and try a second scenario and task using the TREIO eEDES simulator, as you can see here. The training has been designed for all stakeholders. We have considered several end users and professionals who undertake the training will receive access to both training packages, so the full package and the eEDES package. All quizzes and examination elements are included in the package itself. So it's all contained in one environment, and the exercises, while they are embedded in the training, we will also provide them as separate files for you to utilise and practice with the TREIO eEDES simulator. We have also considered trainers. Now, I mentioned that there are no trainers for the self-paced course. There is no instructor required, but if competent authorities decided that a trainer should be embedded for such a course, then we have provided not only the online training as per the professionals undertaking it, but also some storyboard files to map the content and also the solutions to the quizzes and examination. And we have also thought about the competent authorities who may wish to embed the e-learning in their own learning management system, for example, or maybe potentially would like to adapt the content furthermore to the national requirements and needs. And to do so, we've provided all the developer files, including images, graphics, text, etc., a developer manual which essentially maps out the content, and then the actual developer files themselves. And now I will hand back to Alex, who will go through the TREIO eEDES simulator with you.
Thank you, Georgina. So I kind of already hinted what the TREIO eEDES simulator is, but I will now try to explain in more details. So in an ideal training environment, when you have face-to-face training, or at least person-to-person type of training, you are in a position to exercise all the different steps and actions that could be taken in the context of the EIO exchange between with your peers. So you can have a training partner, or you can directly exercise all these aspects with your trainer. And you'll be both using your own profiles in the eEDES system. You communicate through the eCodex secure channels, and everything should be just perfect. However, in an e-learning environment where you have a self-paced type of training, you don't have any support from other trainees or partners in that sense. So what we have tried to do is to replace the need of a partner by the so-called TREIO autoresponder. And this is the additional feature that we have incorporated in the original eEDES instance that we took. So this is why I said that our eEDES simulator is an exact replica of the original system with the special feature built on top of the other functionality. So how does this autoresponder works? So again, this is a bit technical, but in terms of a slide, but the idea is to show you how close we are to a real-time exchange by introducing this autoresponder. So for purposes of the TREIO project, we have installed a real eCodex communication point linked to the real eCodex environment. On one side of the communication, it is our TREIO version of the eEDES system, the TREIO eEDES simulator. So every time when a TREIO participant initiate an exchange of requests over the simulator or some kind of communication in this regard, it goes through our communication point through the eCodex communication channel. But it does not go to a competent authority. It goes to the in the opposite direction on your screen to the TREIO autoresponder, and all these different exercises that you could perform in that moment are embedded in the e-learning course that Georgina just presented. However, if you feel comfortable enough and you have sufficient experience with the EIO Exchanges, you can also do these exercises completely independently from the e-learning course and just try and explore the system when you go. However, this is as closest to an actual exchange as possible. And you will see when I show you the system in a bit that there are a number of notifications regarding the EIO exchanges, regarding the messages that you exchange. And these notifications are coming not only from the system itself, but also from the eCodex communication channel. So in every single instance, you know whether your message has reached the other side, the other competent authority, or not. So there is no doubt whether the system on the other side is working or not. And this is also simulated in our eEDES simulator. Georgina already hinted about these exercises, but I'm just going to go into more details about the different use case scenarios that we have developed. As you see also from the names of these scenarios, they try to touch upon all the important stages in the EIO exchange and to train you in using the system during these stages. So the first 7 scenarios are actions that could be performed on the issuing side, and then the last 3 are actions taking place on the receiving side. Each of these scenarios has a if-then behavior, which means that when you go through the exercises, you are assigned to take particular type of actions. And every time when you implement that action, the autoresponder developed by TREIO provides you with feedback. And depending on the type of scenario that you look at, you have different type of feedback. For example, if you want to practice how to issue Annex B, you need to first receive an EIO from the other side in order to work on it and issue your Annex B. This means that you ask the TREIO autoresponder to send you an EIO, you receive it, and then you're now on the executing side and you start working on the EIO. On the opposite side, if you want to issue an EIO, but you're not sure what happens if, for example, you issue the EIO, but then something is wrong with it and the other side may request additional information. You can simulate scenario number 6. You issue the EIO, and in certain conditions that are illustrated in the respective scenario, the TREIO autoresponder sends back a request for additional information. And then you can see and feel how this look, and then better understand how you can operate further with the system. Here on the screen, I just put all these different type of scenarios that I've just explained. But one important note, looking at the screen, is that, for example, when you're playing on the issuing side, so you would like to issue an EIO, in order for the TREIO autoresponder to give you feedback, you need to select this autoresponder when you select executing state. So you don't send your EIO to Portugal or Bulgaria or the Netherlands, you send it to the TREIO autoresponder so that the system could feed you with additional actions. On the other side, as I said, if you are in the position of the executing state, then you need to order from the issuing state, being the simulator, your EIOs in order to work on them. And all these matters, I just briefly touched upon them now, but all these matters are actually explained in much greater details in the exercise that we are to give you. And now I just want to show you for a bit how the system looks for those who have not seen it. I'm going to my browser. Each of you will receive a username and password to access both the e-learning course and the TREIO eEDES simulator. So you take your username, it will look something like that. You take your username, you type in your password, following the links that we will give you, and you sign in to, sorry, let me just select it again, and you sign in to the system. As I already told you, it is an exact replica of the original system provided by the Commission, and the only way to differ it from it is to look at this little icon here saying that this is our version of the system. Then you see your username here, and when you go to the profile from this little section here, you can see all the rows that you have with your profile. Officially, when you're using the TREIO system, it will be your competent authority assigning you these rows. You may be in the position of the author, of the signer of the EIO. You may be in a position to only review it or only to send it. This is linked to the competencies that you have in your institution. But for the purposes of the training, we have given you all possible rights. So you can exercise all the different functionalities on your own. You can also change the interface from English to Greece, for example. So let us find Greece here. Here. Of course, I'm going to switch back to English because I don't speak Greek, but you can use the system in English, in Greek, or in any other language you feel comfortable with. I'm going to switch back to English. And now I'm going to show you on a very basic level how this system works. So every time you would like to initiate a new request, you just go to the Start New Request button, and then you initiate the type of request that you are interested in. So let's say you would like to issue an EIO request, and we just start another draft. You give a subject of the request here. It might be a long description. It might be a shorter description. The purpose here is to make it as understandable as possible to the receiving side. So you initiate the EIO request, and this is how it looks first. So you have an overview of what's going on at every stage of your request and its consecutive exchange. So now the information is basically lacking because we're at the very first stage. But when you progress from one stage to the next, the status of the request will change. It will appear here. Once you assign the executing authority, in the case of the exercises, it will be the TREIO autoresponder. It will appear here, and so on and so on. You can see all the documents attached, all your colleagues assigned to the same case within your authority. There will be a section on deadlines when once the EIO is completed, and so on. And then you can go here through the different annexes, and they will appear independently depending on the stage where you are in the exchange. Now, considering we're just starting issuing the EIO, we can only fill Annex A. And Annex A followed the original template provided by the EIO directive with slight amendments for easiness of the process. This means that there are certain parts of this template that have been made mandatory for the one who fill it in. So this is done in such a way to remind you which are the mandatory parts, which are the most important parts of the of Annex A, so you don't forget to fill them in, or just to distract yourself and provide some information that is not needed, but forget to provide the one that is truly needed. You can validate once going from section to section the status of the EIO changes. If you look at your drafts, you'll see immediately which are at the final stages of filling, which are almost completed. But what's important here that at every stage of filling in the document, you can validate it. And the validation performed refers to whether you have filled in the mandatory fields of the of Annex A or not. So here you see that there are a number of mandatory fields that I need to fill in before I complete the EIO. And if you go to that section, it will immediately highlight you with red which are the fields that you need to complete before you proceed. At every stage of the process, there are different actions that you may take, and you can see them here from the workflow button. So at this stage, we can only complete the EIO. But once you progress with the EIO exchange, the workflow will allow you for different actions. And I will show you a bit later a received request, so you can see what will be the options there. One important feature here is the event and message timeline. And this is where you see all the communications in a chronological order undertaken within this particular EIO exchange. And here you see all notifications coming both from eEDES and the Codex system. And here it shows whether the message was received on the other side, whether each message contained a specific type of document, whether there was a specific communication sent with regards to the EIO exchange, and so on. And again, when we go to the receive request, you see how this event and message timeline changes over time with the progress of the EIO exchange. I mentioned the auto translation earlier. So this is a feature that allows you to translate the field in annex or specific sections of the annex. And this does not substitute the official translation that is required by the EIO directive. It does not substitute the information that the official information that is requested in different languages by the receiving side as per the directive, but it could help you in urgent matters and in very operative situations where you just need to quickly understand what the EIO refers to, so you can know how to act and distribute your work. But in any case, you need to oblige the legal requirements for official translation. But as I said, this is just a useful feature. I will just select one of the received requests so you can see the differences when you progress through the case. So this is an EIO that was requested by the user from the TREIO autoresponder. The TREIO autoresponder sent this EIO to the participant in the training. And now the participant in the training is in the position to respond as the issuing side. And they are acting in that fashion. And you can see here that the current instance of eEDES is actually the executing side. You see how the overview changes because now you have here the different statuses. And the current status of this case is there is an Annex B issued in response. You also see you don't have other colleagues assigned to the case, but you also see all the documents linked to this exchange, and you see all the deadlines linked to this exchange. You can review the original Annex A that was received. You can review the Annex B that you have issued. And if you move to the event and message timeline, you see in chronological order how these things happened. This is quite a simple timeline, but if you have a more complicated case, you will see here a lot more messages and exchanges taking place. And here, if you go at, now knowing that you are at this stage, if you go to the workflow button, you see now how many different actions you have to act upon if you're willing to do so, depending on what is the current situation. And as I said, this workflow options changes depending on the stage you have reached. From the dashboard, you can access all the issued requests you did, all the received requests you may have, or the drafts that have not yet been completed. Now here, and this applies to all the different categories from the menu, you can see the type of request. You can assign colleagues if you have the rights to do so, to take part in the case, but you also see the status of these particular requests because we're in the draft section. It's obvious that these are all drafts. But for example, when you reach a specific stage that is close to the end of filling the EIO, so close to finalizing the draft, this will also change, for example, when you reach section L or K of Annex A. The system also provides you with some filter and search options to support you when you're looking for a particular case. You can perform a free search, but you can also select from a number of filters that will lead you to the case that we're looking for. And here you see how the status changes because these are EIO received. And if the case is closed, for example, the status will change again. I'm not going into any further details because this is not an EIO training, but I think you got the picture of what the system is. It's very simplistic, it's very user-friendly, and our instance of the simulator provides you really with a safe environment to play with it and to experiment without fear that you may interrupt an actual EIO flow of a competent authority. Maybe one last thing to note. For example, on the received request, you also have a list of ongoing deadlines. So this is a reminder to you what are the urgent steps or the most important steps to be undertaken with the existing EIOs in your system. You may change the order in the search option. You may change the way the information is listed, so it becomes easier to you to manipulate and your schedule, but you always see what is expected from you and by when. I will go now back to my presentation. So each of you, as I said, I think several times already, each of you will receive access to the e-learning course and to the eEDES simulator. However, there are also a number of other tools you might be interested in, either as a professional or as a trainer or as a representative of your competent authority. So on the TREIO website that you see on the screen, we are developing the so-called toolkit section, where we will gradually upload all the training materials, including in their language versions, all the guidelines, all the additional information related to these tools, in such a way, so depending on your interest as a professional, as a trainer, as a representative of a competent authority, you may just go and find all the materials that refer to you. This will happen in the next 10 days, 2 weeks time. It's quite a lot of information and it's quite a lot of work to gather and arrange them in this way. But in the end, when we are ready, all who have signed up for these webinars will receive an email, job done, go online and find your material. As I said, you receive complimentary access to the tools, but you can forward this recording or this presentation to any colleague of yours. And if they're interested to also use these tools, they can go to the link showed on the screen and they could sign up for access. It takes a couple of days, but the access is always provided. And if for some reason it goes to the spam box or the participant cannot find it or has some questions on how to work with the tools, they can always reach us via office@treio.eu email. One important note from a purely operational point of view that is important for both you and all those who signed up additionally for the usage of these tools is the following. So in the very beginning, you receive one and the same password and username and password for accessing all these tools. However, when you first enter the e-learning course, the platform will ask you to change your password for security reasons. So you will end up with a new password for the e-learning course, but the original password that we are to distribute to you will remain the same for the TREIO, the eEDES simulator, and the TREIO autoresponder. This is important to remember, just not to create further confusion when you start working with the tools. As I said, you receive this recording, you receive the presentation, all the access details, and independently from that, you also receive some guidelines and the exercises for the eEDES simulator and the autoresponder. In case you decide to solely focus on the use of the simulator without going through the e-learning course, this is of course your prerogative, and you have the option to go in one or another direction. So this is all from us. We are here in case you have questions, in case you would like to further explore certain features that we have mentioned, but was not made sufficiently clear to you, or anything else that you can think of regarding the project. Just raise your hand, share your comment, or put it in the chat, and we'll read it for the audience.
Alex, we have a question in the chat of whether this platform constitutes an official channel for judicial cooperation between member states, and its purpose, is it to replace other channels in the future?
Well, eventually, when the use of e-codex becomes mandatory, this type of exchanges in digital format will be the only possible exchanges. This will start in 2028. If Greek decides to explore the eEDES system, they will deploy an instance like the one that we showed you, and it will be the official system to use. Now, if, for example, the Greek authorities decide to develop a national solution, it might look like this one. It might explore some of the features, but in essence, it will be a different system. Until then, until an official decision from Greek authorities is taken and implemented, you are free to use, for example, our eEDES simulator to practice on the system. But our version of the eEDES system is not an official one. It does not exchange EIOs with competent authorities. It only sends information to the autoresponder for purposes of training. So let's be sure that you make the distinction between the official system used by a competent authority and what we have just showed you. Is this answering the question? If I understood it right.
I believe so, but I will let you know if there are any further questions to that in the chat.
Okay.
Yes, all answered.
Okay, good. We had received some questions from the registration forms. Most of them cover for the different modalities of the trainings, different aspects of the simulator that I truly believe we already covered in our presentation, but there may be some other details either from technical or operational side that we have missed or have not considered relevant to all. So if you think of such a question, just let us know either now or after the end of this webinar. Will remain available over email. So if you have any questions, just drop us a line and we'll do our best to respond to them. One request from our side: when you're using the eEDES simulator, it is developed for training purposes. So please avoid putting any sensitive or confidential information that could duplicate some real cases that you're working on. Just make sure that whatever you put on the system does not violate any internal rule in that matter. Let me just go through the registration comments. Okay, so one comment covers the member states that are currently deploying the eEDES system. I already showed this in the very beginning. Unfortunately, Greece is not yet one of them, but I know the colleagues from the ministry are working in that direction. How to register and use the system? You can only opt to register and use for the eEDES simulator that we have developed in the way I showed you. However, if it was the real system to be used on national level, your access would be given from your respective competent institutions. You cannot just opt to use or not to use it. What is the language to be used when sending an EIO? I already spoke about this. While you're using the training environment, you may use both the auto translation functionality, or you may put information in any language you see fit. But in a real-time exchange, when you do work on your national implementation for Greece, then you need to oblige with the respective rules coming from the EIO directive and to follow the recognized language of the respective receiving side. There was also one comment on the type of attachments and the size of the attachments that could be included via the system. eEDES allows for sending documents, both in Word and PDF and other document formats. It also allows for uploading video and audio content, but to a certain size. And that size is also, the limitations in that sense are also coming from the limitation introduced by the eCodex system, over which infrastructure this system is working. As far as I'm aware, the Commission is also working in that direction, how to provide further features on large size files, but it is not yet implemented. Something that may come up to your mind, for example, it could relate to how to find the proper competent authority. Currently, as you are doing it in practice, it is implemented by going to the EGN Atlas, which helps you find the proper competent authority for the purposes of your EIO exchange. And this is how it's implemented in the system at the moment. It is literally a reference to the EGN Atlas. You go out from the system, you check the Atlas, you go back to the system, and then put the right competent authority. As far as we are aware, the Commission is also working in that direction to provide direct integration between the EGN Atlas and the eEDES system, but is not yet implemented. Another question that we have received from a participant in one of the previous webinars was about the involvement of Eurojust. Currently, Eurojust does not have a special role in the system, but again, as far as we are aware from the feedback given to us by the Commission, they're working on a dedicated profile role for Eurojust representatives that could be involved in future in the EIO exchanges to support those exchanges. I haven't noted down anything else, but of course, you're free to ask if I have missed something. I have tried to be exhaustive, but of course, it never happens like that. So are there any questions from the audience? Further questions?
I don't see any further questions in the chat.
Okay. Then I would suggest to close for the day. Thank you very much for being here, for signing up for this training, for being here, for paying attention, for sending all these comments in the registration forms. And again, just be a little bit patient with us. You'll get all the materials somewhere by the end of the week, just as we promised you today. And then you'll be able to explore the tools on your own. In case you have trouble with using the tools or you have any questions in that regard, just drop us a line at the office@treio.eu email. Also be patient with us there. We don't respond in an hour. We receive too much correspondence, but we will come back to you in a day or two, and you'll get an answer from us. If we don't know the answer, we'll know whom to ask, and we will forward it to the right person. Thank you very much again, and have a great week ahead.